Okay, how is everybody doing? So today we're going to try it again. Everything looks like it's coming up good. Hopefully we've got some good audio. I should be live. Welcome Facebook, YouTube on the EFerInternational channels. Let's go ahead, boom, and get Instagram. Hello, Instagram. So everybody's up and going pretty well. Let me adjust that a little bit. Yeah. So we're going to talk about something we started last week. Okay. And I had some technical issues. And then I found out maybe, problems are, and I've had to say this a lot this week, problems are an opportunity to develop solutions and find out why things happen the way they do. Uh, some folks, and I've known some ministers and people that when everything doesn't go quite right, they blow up. They think all is lost, and it's just not the case. In this case, yes, I kind of missed the opportunity, but I wasn't quite fully prepared because a couple other pieces of information came across my desk shortly after that actually will add to this presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get into that in a little bit. What am I stepping on here? Hang on a second. There we go. Had to clear that out. So let's go ahead and we're going to go on prayer here and open things up. Father, I thank you for everything you've given. I thank you for the opportunity and the information that you've sent. Lord, let it be truth, and everything that's false, everything that's a lie, fall to the ground and not be fruitful. Father, be with your people. Bless them. Bless the information that goes forward and validate it with signs and wonders, healings, deliverance, miracles, however you choose to validate this with your anointing and your power. And I thank you for it, Father. Be with and bless in this time of fellowship. In Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, so hopefully everything's sounding good. It looks good on my end, but we'll see. If there's a problem, no news is good news, right? So let's go ahead and share screen. And then in the end, I got something else I want to share. So, but that'll be one of those kick out, come back. There. Is that where I want to be? Probably not. Nope. I've got to stop share here when it comes back up because that was actually not where I wanted to go. So at any rate, we're going to talk about AI in the end times. And I know a lot of folks have conjured up this thing about Skynet and, you know, if we see Arnold Schwarzenegger coming down the street at us, is he real? Is he a robot? Is it AI? What in the world? Where is this all going? And while right now your chat GPT is not going to send out robots to take control, but that's the base level, guys. That's the child's play. That's what we're using in school. That's what we're doing wherever else. And okay, now what I've got to do is do this. Now, you know what? I'm going to have to stop share and start that again. There we go. I want this one. Now, let's see if it comes up or if we're going to have a delay. It looks pretty good so far. Okay, awesome. That was quick and easy. So let's get into that. Whoop, beautiful. Okay, so let me hide these controls. You got to love it. This is all live. There's no AI here. We're talking about AI. I haven't used the AI, although I did ask it a couple of questions. But this is what we're talking about. AI and the image of the beast. As I was going through some things, some pretty curious things come up, and we're so close now to the edge of all this. And I know Prophet Steve went over some AI things. You can go back to the YouTube channel or Facebook and see last week's live stream. Uh, I think that was all on there. You can go to the EFerInternational Ministries page, boom, and we can go there. And if you don't know what that is, you can look up EFerInternationalMinistries.com to find that. So let's go into it now. What got me, Glenn Beck had an interview, and some of you have seen that and heard it. But for the rest of you that hadn't, it was pretty interesting. That's what kind of started things going down this road. Unplug it immediately. Eric Schmidt, an ex-Google CEO. Now, Google's doing all sorts of things with AI. In fact, we're going to watch a video at the end of this that'll show you just how realistic an AI generated video can be. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but it was made with a new product that they've got out called VO3, I believe it is, Video O3. So, at any rate, I know a lot of you aren't going to do that. I think that package starts at like $250 a month to get that, but it's out there and it's pretty good and it's pretty realistic. This is not, this is live. Eric Schmidt, ex Google CEO, and I've got, for those of you on Instagram, again, um, all this is on Facebook or YouTube if you want to see all the notes that the rest of them are getting. When AI starts talking to another AI in multiple languages, and in some cases, its own language, yeah, these AI models are starting to interact with each other in code and languages that we as humans cannot recognize. We don't know what language they're talking. That can get scary. It's bad enough when, like, when I was down at Southern Command and my employees from Haiti started talking back and forth, and I had no idea what in the world they were saying. Sometimes it was even worse. You'd get the ones that were talking a mix of English, Dominican, which is Spanish, and Haitian Creole. And yeah, you didn't have a chance understanding what they were saying. This is worse. This is an unknown language. Kind of like when we're praying in tongues to the Father. Uh, this is kind of that kind of language. So, uh, but Eric Schmidt, one of the guys developing this, said when that happens, when we have no way of knowing, we need to unplug it immediately because it's out of control. An OpenAI O3 model recently shown when they had a chess program that it was playing, and it was going against other AI models, and they put in different math problems and then put shutdown codes into it. All of a sudden, it ignored that, or it rewrote things so that it didn't have to shut down. It was preserving, quote unquote, its life. Now, Hollywood, we've had the different things. I remember one movie where a little robot come in and it says, no delete, no delete. It didn't want to get shut down. And the whole thing was that this little robot became self-aware. And you know what? It's funny how Hollywood does some of that stuff. Remember, for those of you that are Star Trek fans, how many, and I know there's at least one on here, they had the two-way communicators. They'd flip open and talk. A few years later, we got a flip phone, cellular phone, and we can do the same thing. Uh, Sometimes Hollywood gets ahead and tries to desensitize. They pick up some things and then stuff starts happening. The old, what was it? Flash Gordon was out running around doing different things. And you know what? Most of what he was doing, we said, wow, that's too fantastic. It can't be real is commonplace nowadays. So getting back at it, this O3 model is misbehaving. It's ignoring shutdown protocols and actually would cheat or hack the other systems in order to win. Now, when an AI model does that on its own, that can be a little problematic, don't you agree? And this is where we're touching on some things that researchers are fascinated and concerned, to put it mildly. So, what we call that when this starts happening is recursive self improvement. Now, RSI for short, in the context of AI, refers to the process by which an artificial intelligence system is capable of autonomously redesigning or improving its own algorithms, architecture, or capabilities. As the AI system improves itself, it may become better at making further improvements, potentially resulting in a feedback loop of accelerating advancements. So, and this is something that I researched, took a copy paste of what came back on this. Key concept: self modification. It can design its own self. Recursion, which means it's a recursive, it's always building, it's a loop. And that positive feedback loop, then each iteration of improvements can, in theory, result in more rapid, substantial progress than the previous one. And I know from the AI models, and I use quite a bit of it, um, I think the Lord God put me in a position where I could understand and get kind of behind the curtain on a lot of this more than most people would just ask Chat GPT a question and go, yeah, I'm using AI. I'm actually way past that, and have been for some time, and seen the developments. Even in the last year, video development has just exploded. I now can have agents or assistants that sound like me, that look like me, that can answer questions from customers as they're calling in, and they don't know whether they've got the live mic or Mike's assistant. And that can be scary when that happens, when it's so realistic. I had a friend that used one and ordered a pizza, got the address, paid for it, and gave everything down to the T. He just said, order me a pizza and I want it by 6:30. And that AI bot called knew his favorite restaurant, giving his buying tendencies, went in, figured out what he likes to do off the internet, and actually had the pizza there at 6:30, all on its own. Now that's kind of spooky when that happens. And hello to the new folks jumped on there with Instagram. So the AI models are advancing, and what happened? That was 5 months ago. We were playing around with that. The advances today are even better or more scary, depending on how you want to look at it. So, what is the problem? That's what I want to look at. There's some good things and there's some bad things. So, I asked, let's see if that's okay, to continue there, and I want to move that. And again, for those joining us on Insta, if you want to see all the slides that we've got, you can go over to Facebook, our Facebook page, and or YouTube, or check them out later after this is all done. All that will be on there. Why is it noteworthy about the RSI? The idea is significant in discussions about artificial general intelligence. Now, you can go on, there are different levels of the AGI, And this isn't just conversational, this is general intelligence. This is a step up from the just little chat GPT bots that you're seeing out there. This is the next level, and there's several levels above that. Challenges and concerns, we could really get an explosion of intelligence in the AI community. Safety and control. Once AI can rewrite and enhance itself, it might develop unpredictably, possibly in ways misaligned with human goals. Technical barriers. Building an AI even capable of modest self-improvement is complex and an unsolved problem, but it's happening today. And that's where fiction starts to mimic real life. We think about the movies, the I, Robot, the Terminator, where all of a sudden we've got artificial intelligence that's becoming self-aware, and it's making decisions on its own. So, in summary, recursive self improvement is when AI can repeatedly and autonomously upgrade itself, potentially leading away to runaway intelligence. And it facilitates researchers because of both it begins to fascinate, excuse me, not facilitate, because of both its vast promise and serious risk. And you can see how that would be a concern for all of us. But how does this tie into biblical prophecy as we see in the book of Revelation? And that's what I want to get into, is how this may, in fact, make it possible for what we read there. So, could this be an interesting thought? Could this be the Tower of Babel in reverse? You know what? I'm going to have to let me pause right there, folks. I see my low battery light come on my phone here, and I don't want to lose the folks on Instagram. Hold on just a sec. Boom, 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 boom. Let me get out a battery pack here. Hang on, folks. Don't want to lose my Instagram, folks. Close. Okay. Hey, look at there. It's handy to have a good battery backup, right? Okay. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. And it's going to be in because I'm charging, so that's a little wonky. Yep, we're going to leave it about right there. It's live. You can't, I don't know, maybe I could do that. So let's get back to the Tower of Babel. It's a good place if we're going to take a break to have a good place. So I asked one of my AGI platforms, if you will, hypothetically, could there be a correlation between the Tower of Babel and RSI, only in reverse, and got that answer? Great question, Mike. Hypothetically, yes, there's an interesting conceptual parallel between the Tower of Babel and the narrative in the Bible and the idea of recursive self improvement in AI, but in reverse. So here we go. Here's the answer I got. First, when we look, the Tower of Babel, for those of you that may not know, it's found in Genesis 11, 1 through 9. We know the story where man started to come together and they said, look, we're going to make a tower that will reach the heaven. Again, same thing, same lie from the same enemy. I will build my throne up in the north, in the seat of God. I will be as God. That's the same thing. It's the same stuff here. Okay. So, in summary, what I got here was humanity united with one language and purpose tries to build a tower to heaven. God intervenes, confuses their language, scatters them, holding their progress on the tower due to overreaching pride and perceived dangers of unchecked human ambition. Remember one of the things that God said that was a problem? Man could, anything in his imagination is possible. And when we start looking at the power of the imagination of the human mind and what is in there and what God's creative, one of the first things that we see about God's character is that he is creative. He is a creator. And when man became separated, we were formed in his image and in his likeness. We received the Ruach, the Spirit. So we became creators in a sense. We have this creative nature that runs through us, but left unchecked without the guidance of the Holy Spirit and open to demonic influences, that creative characteristic left unchecked can go way wrong. And we've seen it throughout human history, time and time and time again. So that's kind of the story. Now, in summary, uh, if you look at recursive self improvement, where AI begins to get capacities and create its own language, that's where we start to get in trouble. They may play God. So, from many languages, and we know that AI models, I've got one that if you call the phone and you want to talk to me in Portuguese, it will automatically pick that up and it will converse to you in Portuguese, whatever, I don't know what language, Portugal, Portuguese, whatever it is, but I tried to look at it. I don't know it. It looks strange to me, but even Mandarin or Russian or whatever. The AI that I use can talk in my voice in all those different languages automatically. I don't have to tell it what's going on. It picks it up right away from the very first greeting. It's kind of scary. It's kind of nice when you're doing a business and you're trying to converse globally, but it's also a problem when that can go awry and it starts to build its own language and starts to remember that Eric Schmidt quote that we've seen at the very beginning. He said, when they start talking in multiple languages and or creating their own language, talking about AI, that's a problem. Now, the correlation in reverse. Babel, humanity's unified progress is forcibly fragmented and limited by divine intervention. RSI, an artificial intelligence starting small, could autonomously unify and accelerate its own language and capability, overcoming all technical and knowledge barriers, effectively reversing the confusion and scattering from Babel by bringing about singularity level unity and power in non-human agent. So we're taking it from what God scattered in the original language when God said, "All right, that's it. We got to break this up." Now AI is bringing that back together. Instead of being stopped by a higher power, RSI or AI breaks through human imposed or God imposed barriers. Where Babel resulted in limitation and division, RSI could result in a consolidation and unlimited expansion of knowledge and power. that could be a problem. I think we can all agree on that. So, hypothetical implication, in a sense, RSI could be seen as a process that overcomes the original limitation imposed at Babel, but not by human means, by an artificial agent. Some might even argue this has spiritual or cautionary significance, which is why I'm bringing this subject up today. Paralleling the warnings from the Babel story about overreaching ambition, but reflecting these themes through the technology and AI. So, where's this all heading? I want to look at something else here real quick. Operation Blue Streak. And this is, I will say, I've got a disclaimer at the end that I did some deep research and tried to find out a bunch of articles. Of course, nothing concrete that I could get my hands on said definitively that this technology's out there, but just the fact that there's enough of it that's available that we know from surface level research that there could be more hiding. How many of you know the government, the military agencies, and uh, I see why, but they're not going to divulge what they're working on, and they're probably way out in front of anything that gets released to the public. So, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I want to throw this out as a possible means for what we see in Revelation 13. So, Operation Blue Streak, you guys can look it up if you want. Here it is. Whether it's conspiracy theory or there is some basis in fact, I guess time will tell. But if we open our eyes and we can say, okay, I've heard of this, what's going on? Here's some things that's going on. NASA and a few other intelligence agencies, I imagine a bunch of three-letter agencies, have developed 3D holographic imaging tech to turn the sky into a movie screen. And some would say, kind of makes sense why would they bombard the skies with aluminum. Pretty good reflective material if you were building a giant video screen, right? But the ionosphere um, is able to reflect those things anyway. So why would we need a giant projector? Why would we want to go that route and have something? Well, here's the overview. Project Bluebeam is a conspiracy theory that claims global elites are preparing to use advanced technologies, particularly holographic projections, sophisticated sound systems, and mind control techniques to stimulate religious or extraterrestrial events. As Christians, are we not looking for an extraterrestrial an event that's going to break open the eastern sky? And does the enemy not know that that's written? So if you were the enemy, would you not want to put uh, your own display? Just saying. This report delves into the historical context of conspiracy theories. This is just an overview of the report. And if you want the whole report, I did download it as a PDF. It's got the sources that they looked into and everything else when I did the deep research on this. So you can have it. It shows some of the things here. Um, there's a lot of implications with this, all right? Now, insert this, and that's where I like to do is insert some scripture and see what's going on. I got a comment here on Instagram. The fireworks displays in the UK have been full of imagery in the sky in recent years. Yeah, I've heard that. There's different things coming. They've got some real good holographic things that they can project up there. And especially if they're shooting off fireworks, they've got particles that are in the air. And man, it's just, it's a matter of time. It's real easy to project an image from a holographic device. Excuse me. Let me get a drink here. So, Yeshua said here in Matthew 24, watch out, don't let anyone fool you, for many will come in my name saying, I am the Messiah, and they will lead many astray. Now, I've been on this kick. Remember, in Matthew 24, the first thing after the disciples say, what is the sign of your coming? When will the end of the age be? He said, watch out. Don't be fooled. Don't be deceived. Why would he say that at the get go? And we're going to look at some other here in verse 10. At that time, many will be trapped into betraying and hating each other. Many false prophets will appear and fool many people, and many people's love will go cold because of the increased distance from Torah. Now, if you know anything about EFerInternational Ministries, we are a Torah based ministry. We are what you see in Revelation 12. These are those who keep the commandments and have the testimony of Yeshua. That is where we're at. And the deception comes, the abomination that makes desolate is that ripping away from the gold standard that God set in Torah, the instruction book. So when we do that, when we separate, the abomination is that we have left the commands, the instructions of our Father for something else. It was always one God, one instructions to one people. It hasn't changed. Yeshua came to seek and save that which is lost. If you were never part of his group originally, how can you be lost? Just think about that. Marinate on that ruminate on that if you want for a little while. So imagine looking up to see something like this. Holographic images, angels. How about Yeshua? How about Baba Buddha coming, or Krishna, or Muhammad, or pick your favorite religious icon, okay? And imagine if simultaneously they appeared worldwide. You could hear them, you could see them. Would that get your attention? I imagine it would. Now imagine here in Matthew 24, at that time, if someone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe him. For there will appear, curiously they put it that way, appear false messiahs and false prophets performing great miracles, amazing things, so that as to fool even the chosen, if possible. There, I've told you in advance. So if people say to you, listen, he's out in the desert, don't go. Look, he's hidden away in a secret room, don't believe him. For when the Son of Man comes, it will be like lightning that flashes out of the east and fills the sky to the western horizon. And I imagine because it was written, and how many of you know, the enemy knows Scripture probably better than most people, even in pulpits around the world. He knows it. And he knows this is the event that's set up. So he's got to mimic, duplicate the coming of Messiah. Now, if you will, imagine if suddenly all of those images come together into one image worldwide, meaning that all religions are now one. And this beast, this image, this antichrist, or even in that case, anti-Buddha, anti-Krishna, anti-Muhammad, anti-Allah, if you will, whatever, is now saying and teaching that all these things that separated us, all of the wars that happened because of religious, and he will go through all the teachings because AI has a record of all that. AI knows the Bible front and back. AI knows the Quran front and back, and whatever else of these ancient writings that are there, he knows it. AI knows all that. So don't you think if AI was cooperating with putting on a grand movie screen event, that he could pick up? I keep saying he because it's the image of the beast. It's the one controlling behind the scenes, the shadow masters, if you will. Yeah, the image comes to life. Here in Revelation 13, it says, and it deceives the people living on the earth by its miracles. It's allowed to perform in the presence of the beast, and it tells them to make an image honoring the beast that was struck by the sword but came alive again. Looks like that'd be pretty easy to do if it was AI generated, a hologram. It was allowed to put breath into the image of the beast, so the image, and I like the way they keep saying the image of the beast could even speak. And it was allowed to cause anyone who would not worship the image of the beast to be put to death. If you won't fold in to this new one world religion, where we heard that before, then you can't be part of society. Maybe they'll load them up on train cars and run them to a facility. Have we seen that before? It forces everyone, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead. Why do you think the enemy chose to mark the Jewish people? You can't go outside unless you have a mark, something that identifies that you're a Jew. It was a play. It was, let's see how this works. But seeing isn't always believing. There'll be a lot of people that'll see it and go, no, I think they're screwing with us. That's just a hologram. But we know as believers that believing comes from the hearing of the word and the hearing of the word and the hearing of the word, right? Phase 2 would be electronically augmented two-way communication. So if you can imagine, and it's not too far out there in beyond the realm of possibility, that if there was a global think tank that knew, just like I described before, my little AI bot that could order a pizza for me, and all I had to do is tell it I want a pizza by 6:30, and it shows up at my door because it called, it did everything, remember? Electronically augmented two-way communication. Now, through radio waves, they're planting thoughts. There's communication, not just audible, and it will be audible, but it's more sinister than that. By using diffuse artificial thought, They're going to use VLF and ELF. They're using electromagnetic waves, the towers, the 5G. I'm sorry, guys. All of this stuff that's bombarding us with communication, now we can use that, and all of a sudden you've got this voice in your head. There's nobody here, but I hear a voice. Now, those of you that have ever experienced that still small voice, and maybe somebody, I've known people that have heard an audible voice of God. But can you imagine the deception that will occur when all of a sudden people that have never heard a voice all of a sudden are hearing a voice telling them that what they're seeing is real and that they need to do this and this? Now, guys, this is nothing new. Back in the Vietnam War, they were the CIA and FBI and all the other three-letter agencies were using radio frequency warfare devices. They were agitating the enemy. They were doing different things to them and causing them to act differently. They were trying out different things. This is uh, all documented. You can go on the History Channel and see what they were doing with that. Don't you think they just didn't stop there? That they've developed more? But this is one way to do it. So you're seeing it. Maybe you don't believe it, but then you can't escape that voice. And that voice would keep going and going and going. And it would drive you nuts until you acted upon it and did what it told you to do. So, just in case, this is a clip from the patent office. Yes, this device is actually real, but it says it's a technique for producing a subliminal message which is audible to the listeners, demodulated or decoded by the ear, and fed into the subconscious mind. Wow. The stage is set for full-blown deception. The populations could be controlled easily if all of this is actually being developed. I can almost believe that they would use every technology available to pull off that. I mean, after all, we're dealing with the master of deception, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, the adversary that's come to steal, kill, and destroy. So here's the disclaimer. The theory of Project Bluebeam remains one of the most persistent and polarizing conspiracy narratives of our time. They said Project HARP, high altitude auroral projection, was a conspiracy theory. Now you can kind of find all sorts of data just out on the internet on HARP and their weather manipulation and stuff. Could this be a similar situation? While it capitalizes on genuine advancements in holographic and audio technology, which we do have some things that are getting pretty cool, as well as long-standing human fears and cognitive biases, current evidence does not support the existence of a covert global operation aimed at mass control. Okay, I'm going to put that out there. It's kind of like when I say, folks, you ought to have some gold and silver in your possession, and you ought to think about converting some of your fiat currency. But I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't give advice. Do your own research. Same thing. do your own research. I'm just bringing this out so that as one potential situation, right? Now, um, and this is a video that got brought up. If you want to pause when you're looking at this, and you can copy and paste that or something, and you can go to there for one. We'll look at it here in a little bit. Or you can look up Google VO3 and see some of the advancements in technology. We'll see it on our phones. We'll see it on our laptops. I don't know who watches TV anymore, right? It's all there. But we'll look at that in a minute. So that's kind of the end of everything that I had here. Let me do this. I'm going to escape, and I want to show you just how real. I shared this last week with a couple of folks, but I want to show you how real the current AI models, and these aren't even the real good ones yet. I'm sure that Hollywood, they've got a new Jurassic Park coming out, I guess. And can you imagine from what they did the very first ones to the ones that we're about to see with the AI advancements? Yeah, it's pretty wild. So let me stop sharing here. And for those of you on TikTok, you don't get all the grand media here, but maybe you can hear it. And you can go to that link if you want to find it. Let me share again because I had it queued up. PowerPoint, there it is. I'll go to this one, and that'll bring up that. I want to go over here to my Instagram and see if that's still up. Did that bring that up? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Maybe I got, oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so for those of you that are here, and I don't know if this is, you know what? I got to go to audio settings. Optimize for video sharing.
I am AI.
Let me pause this. Share computer sound, stereo. Let's see if that does it.
Fake moon landing footage isn't classified. It's AI.
You're probably... Let me go over settings. I'll bet you what's happening is I got a Bluetooth. Hold on, guys. I'm going to shut that off. There. Now maybe we can get it back. Try one more time. Again, this ain't no AI on this end.